Listen to me now, with every part of your spirit awake, because what I am about to speak is not for entertainment, not for comfort, not for those who want to feel good and go back to sleep. This is a moment suspended between mercy and consequence, a moment standing at the edge of time itself. The clock is moving, the seconds are breathing, heaven is watching, earth is trembling, and God is speaking while the hands of time are approaching 11:59 p.m. There are moments when history whispers, and there are moments when history roars. This is not a whisper, this is a divine alarm echoing through your conscience, shaking the walls of your heart, demanding your attention. You were not brought here by accident. You did not hear these words by chance. God does not waste moments, and He does not speak without purpose. When God warns, it is because He still loves. When God calls, it is because the door is still open. But understand this clearly, an open door does not remain open forever. The world has grown comfortable with delay. People say tomorrow, later, someday. They assume mercy is endless and patience has no boundary. But God's patience is not permission, and His silence is not approval. When the clock moves toward 11:59 p.m., it is not to frighten you, but to awaken you. Because the most dangerous condition of the human soul is not rebellion, it is indifference. God can correct rebellion, but indifference ignores correction. You feel it in your spirit even now. A weight, a stirring, a discomfort that will not let you scroll past or turn away. That is not emotion, that is not psychology, that is the voice of God pressing against the walls of your heart, saying, wake up, pay attention, time matters. God has always warned before He moves. Before judgment, there is mercy. Before consequence, there is a call. Before the door closes, there is an invitation. But every warning carries urgency, because warnings are not eternal. God's final warning is not a threat, it is a rescue. It is the last shout before silence. It is the final knock before the door shuts. And the tragedy is not that God warns, but that people hear and still delay. Look at your life honestly, without excuses, without performance, without pretending. God is not fooled by appearances. He sees beyond your words and into your desires. He sees the compromises you justified, the obedience you postponed, the convictions you silenced. He sees how you learned to live with less than His will while calling it normal. God never designed you for spiritual survival mode. He created you for fire, for clarity, for surrender, for power rooted in obedience. The greatest deception of this generation is the belief that time is unlimited. People plan careers, vacations, and retirements, but they do not prepare their souls. They invest in what will fade and neglect what is eternal. They assume God will always be available on their terms. But God is sovereign, not convenient. He is patient, but He is also holy. And holiness does not negotiate with delay. When God says now, He does not mean later. When God warns, He is measuring response, not reaction. Many feel fear and call it repentance. Many feel emotion and call it transformation. But God is not moved by tears without change. He is not impressed by words without obedience. He looks for alignment, not performance. This warning is not for the wicked alone. It is for the comfortable. It is for the religious. It is for those who know about God but no longer tremble before Him. It is for those who once burned with passion but now operate on memory. God is not asking what you used to be. He is asking what you are now. The clock nearing 11:59 p.m. represents a spiritual reality. It is the moment when grace is still available, but urgency can no longer be ignored. It is the moment when excuses collapse under truth. It is the moment when God asks one question that silences every argument. What did you do with what I gave you? God gave you time, and time is not neutral. Time is a gift that carries responsibility. Every day you wake up is evidence that God is not finished. But every day you waste is a warning ignored. You were not created to drift through life hoping everything will somehow work out. You were created to walk in obedience, clarity, and reverence. The problem is not that God is silent. The problem is that people are loud with distractions. Noise has replaced discernment. Comfort has replaced conviction. Entertainment has replaced prayer. God is speaking, but only the surrendered can hear clearly. Only those willing to be uncomfortable can respond fully. Understand this, God's final warning is not about fear of punishment. It is about the urgency of alignment. When you are misaligned, even blessings become burdens. When you are misaligned, success feels empty. When you are misaligned, peace disappears even in abundance. God is not withholding from you, He is waiting for you. Many are asking God to bless what He never authorized. They want favor without obedience, protection without surrender, promises without responsibility. But God does not partner with rebellion. He does not empower compromise. He does not endorse delay disguised as patience. This warning is not meant to crush you, it is meant to confront you. God confronts because He loves. He exposes because He heals. He shakes because He wants to rebuild. But rebuilding requires demolition, and demolition is uncomfortable. Do not confuse God's kindness with tolerance for disobedience. His kindness is meant to lead you to repentance, not relaxation. The longer you delay, the harder your heart becomes. The more you resist, the quieter conviction sounds. And one day, silence replaces warning. The most terrifying judgment is not disaster. It is when God stops speaking, when He allows people to continue without interruption, without correction, without conviction. That is not freedom. That is abandonment. And this warning exists because God has not abandoned you. Right now, heaven is not asking about your reputation, your success, or your popularity. Heaven is asking about your obedience. God is not impressed by what you show others. He is concerned with what you hide from Him. You cannot carry yesterday's obedience into today's disobedience and expect peace. Faith is not a memory, it is a daily surrender. God does not want your past devotion. He wants your present heart. The door is open now, but open doors have hinges, and hinges move. Grace is extended now, but grace rejected becomes testimony against the one who ignored it. God does not force entry. He invites, warns, and waits, but He does not beg. If you feel pressure in your spirit, that is not condemnation, that is invitation. Condemnation pushes you away from God. Conviction pulls you toward Him. God is pulling you now, not with anger, but with urgency. There is no revival without repentance. There is no transformation without surrender. There is no future without obedience. God is not interested in partial alignment. He demands the whole heart because He knows half-hearted devotion leads to full destruction. You may say you believe in God, but belief without obedience is noise. God is not moved by declarations, He is moved by decisions. Every moment you delay is a decision. Every excuse is a choice. Neutrality is a myth. This warning is not about tomorrow, it is about now. God always operates in the present. Tomorrow is an illusion that comforts disobedience. Now is where obedience lives. If the clock struck midnight spiritually, would your life reflect readiness or regret? God is not asking this to shame you. He is asking to save you. Regret is expensive. Obedience is costly too, but it pays eternal dividends. Do not assume you will always feel this urgency. Feelings fade. Conviction can be resisted. Hearts can harden. Respond while your spirit is still sensitive. Respond while the door is still open. God is not counting your failures. He is measuring your response. He knows where you fell, but He is watching whether you rise. He knows your weakness, but He is waiting for your surrender. This is not a message for later. This is not a message to forward and forget. This is a message that demands a response. God does not warn casually. When He speaks like this, history shifts. The clock is close. Mercy is present. The warning is clear. God is calling you out of delay, out of compromise, out of spirit. Two will sleep, not with condemnation, but with authority and love. The question is not whether God has spoken. The question is whether you will respond before the final minute passes, while the door is still open, while grace is still reaching, while God is still calling, while your heart can still hear, while obedience is still possible, while the warning is still alive and the clock has not yet moved beyond 11:59 p.m. God is not impressed by how long you have known His name if you have forgotten His voice. There are people who can speak about God fluently, yet no longer listen to Him attentively. Knowledge without obedience becomes arrogance, and familiarity without reverence becomes danger. God never intended for you to grow accustomed to His presence while ignoring His instruction. The warning before 11:59 p.m. is not about how much you know, it is about how deeply you yield. There is a holy tension in the air when God issues a final warning. It is the tension between His mercy and His justice, His patience and His authority. God is not torn between these attributes. He is perfect in all of them. But humanity often misunderstands mercy as delay without consequence. Mercy is time given for change, not time granted for complacency. Every extra moment God gives you is an opportunity to realign, not an excuse to drift further. You must understand something vital. God measures life differently than you do. You count years, God weighs obedience. You count achievements, God evaluates faithfulness. You count applause, God listens for surrender. When the final minute approaches, none of the noise that impressed people will matter. Only alignment with God's will remain. Many have mistaken activity for obedience. They are busy, but they are not submitted. They are moving, but not in the direction God assigned. God never asked you to exhaust yourself trying to prove devotion. He asked you to obey. Obedience is not loud, but it is powerful. It does not seek attention, but it commands heaven's response. The warning before 11:59 p.m. exposes false confidence. It strips away spiritual arrogance and reveals how fragile human certainty truly is. People assume they are secure because nothing has collapsed yet. But collapse is not always sudden. Sometimes it is slow erosion. Hearts harden gradually, convictions weaken quietly, sensitivity to God fades subtly, and one day people wake up distant and cannot remember when they drifted. God is calling attention to the small compromises you normalized, the subtle adjustments you made to fit in, the truths you softened to avoid discomfort. God does not speak in vague terms. He is precise. He has already shown you what needs to change. The problem has never been clarity, it has been courage. This warning confronts pride. Pride convinces people they are exceptions, that consequences apply to others, that warnings are exaggerated. Pride says, I still have time. Humility says, I will respond now. God resists. Pride, no. Because He is harsh, but because pride blocks transformation. Only a humble heart can receive correction without rebellion. God does not need your defense. He demands your surrender. He is not asking you to justify your life. He is calling you to align it. There is a vast difference between explaining yourself to God and yielding yourself before Him. Explanations preserve ego. Surrender releases power. The urgency of this moment is not meant to paralyze you with fear, but to sharpen your focus. Fear scatters, reverence concentrates. When you truly revere God, distractions lose their grip. When eternity becomes real, trivial things lose their appeal. God is restoring eternal perspective to a generation intoxicated with immediacy. You were not created merely to exist until life ends. You were designed to walk in conscious awareness of God's presence and authority. Every breath you take is borrowed. Every moment you live is entrusted. God does not waste investments, and He does not ignore misuse. This warning is also about responsibility. God does not only warn individuals, He warns stewards. You are accountable for what you influence, what you permit, what you normalize. Silence in the face of truth is participation in deception. God is awakening voices that have been quiet for too long. There is a cost to obedience, but there is a greater cost to delay. Obedience may cost comfort, but delay costs destiny. Obedience may disrupt routines, but delay dismantles purpose. God is not asking you to destroy your life. He is asking you to rescue it. The approach of 11:59 p.m. represents a threshold. Thresholds demand decisions. You cannot stand forever between two directions. Neutral ground does not exist in the realm of obedience. Every step either moves you closer to God's will or further from it. God sees the private battles no one applauds. He sees the moments when you almost surrendered but chose convenience instead. He sees the internal negotiations you make to avoid full obedience. And still, he warns, because he is giving you another chance to choose correctly, do not underestimate the power of a single moment of genuine surrender. One honest decision can realign years of confusion. One act of obedience can unlock doors you thought were permanently closed. God is not limited by your past. He is waiting on your present response. This warning also dismantles the illusion of control. People believe they manage their lives, their futures, their outcomes, but control is fragile. God allows you to choose, but He alone governs time. That is why urgency matters. You do not own tomorrow. You steward now. There are seasons when God whispers and seasons when He warns. A warning does not mean God is distant. It means He is near and serious. His voice carries authority because the moment carries weight. This is not a rehearsal. This is not symbolic language. This is a spiritual reality unfolding. God is asking for alignment at the core, not surface level adjustments. He is not interested in cosmetic spirituality. He wants the center of your decisions, the root of your desires, the foundation of your identity. Anything less creates instability. The world teaches self-preservation. God teaches self-surrender. The world says, protect yourself at all costs. God says, trust me with everything. This warning exposes which voice you have been listening to. When fear governs decisions, faith is absent. When obedience governs decisions, peace follows. God is not asking you to understand everything before you obey. Understanding often follows obedience, not the other way around. Those who wait for clarity before surrender usually never move. Those who surrender receive clarity along the way. The final warning before 11:59 p.m. is also a mercy to break cycles. Cycles of delay, cycles of compromise, cycles of half-hearted devotion. God is interrupting patterns that would otherwise define your future. Interruptions are uncomfortable, but they are often life-saving. You may feel exposed by this message. Exposure is not humiliation, it is preparation. God exposes what He intends to heal. He confronts what He plans to restore. But restoration requires cooperation. Do not look around wondering who this message is for. It is for you. God always speaks personally before He moves publicly. He deals with the heart before He alters circumstances. External change without internal surrender leads to greater damage. The warning is still active. The door is still open. The call is still clear. God is waiting not for perfection, but for submission. Not for promises, but for action. Not for emotional response, but for decisive obedience. Time is thinning. Distractions are losing their strength. The weight of this moment is intentional. God is bringing you face to face with reality, not to overwhelm you, but to awaken you fully. Awakening is uncomfortable because it ends illusions. If you have been postponing obedience, this is the interruption you needed. If you have been numbing conviction, this is the alarm you cannot silence. God is calling you out of delay into decision, out of comfort into clarity, out of fear into reverence. The warning does not end with condemnation. It intensifies with opportunity. Opportunity to return, opportunity to realign, opportunity to choose God fully while time still responds. Every second you hesitate is a second closer to silence replacing warning. God is not chasing your attention. He already has it. What He is seeking now is your response. Heaven is not impressed by how deeply you feel this moment. Heaven responds to how faithfully you act on it. The clock has not stopped. The minute hand is moving. The urgency is not decreasing. And God, in His mercy and authority, continues to speak, continues to warn, continues to call, continues to wait as eternity leans closer and closer into time. As hearts decide whether to soften or harden, as obedience or delay takes shape, as this moment stretches forward, unresolved, pressing, alive, calling, insisting, and refusing to let you remain the same, while the final warning remains open, active, and echoing before 11:59 p.m. God is not reacting to the world. The world is reacting to God. What you see unfolding around you is not chaos without meaning. It is alignment taking place at a speed the human mind struggles to interpret. When God accelerates moments, it is because delay would be more dangerous than disruption. This warning exists because God is compressing time, intensifying truth, and forcing decisions that can no longer be postponed. There is a spiritual law many ignore. Whatever you consistently resist eventually stops knocking. God is infinitely patient, but patience has purpose. He waits so that hearts can turn, not so that hearts can harden. When warnings increase, it is because opportunities are narrowing. This is not because God is withdrawing love, but because He is clarifying reality. You must confront the illusion that spiritual growth happens automatically. It does not. Drift is natural. Alignment is intentional. Without deliberate surrender, even the most sincere intentions decay. God is not asking whether you started well. He is asking whether you are aligned now, in this exact moment where choice carries weight. The reason this warning feels heavy is because truth carries gravity. Lies float, truth pulls. Truth draws you downward into humility or upward into obedience. There is no neutral response to truth. Every encounter with it either reshapes you or hardens you. God knows this, which is why He warns with clarity and urgency. Many people are waiting for external confirmation before they obey. They want circumstances to change before they surrender. But God changes circumstances after obedience, not before it. Waiting for the environment to become comfortable is another form of delay disguised as wisdom. Obedience rarely feels convenient at first, but it always proves necessary. This warning also exposes misplaced trust. Some trust systems, some trust leaders, some trust routines, some trust their own understanding, but everything that can be shaken will eventually be shaken. God alone remains unmovable. When trust is misplaced, fear increases. When trust is rooted in God, clarity emerges even in uncertainty. You cannot outsource responsibility for your soul. No one else can obey for you. No one else can surrender for you. No one else can respond to this warning on your behalf. God speaks collectively, but He judges individually. This moment is personal, even if it feels global. God is not looking for dramatic gestures. He is looking for decisive shifts. A quiet but firm decision to obey carries more power than loud declarations without follow-through. Heaven responds to alignment, not volume. God honors consistency over intensity. This warning also challenges the way you view comfort. Comfort has become a god for many, dictating decisions and silencing conviction. But comfort never produces transformation. Growth requires tension. Obedience stretches the soul. God does not promise comfort, He promises presence. And His presence sustains you where comfort cannot. There are doors God opened that you hesitated to walk through because obedience would have cost too much. There are instructions you understood clearly, but delayed because surrender felt risky. God remembers every moment you paused instead of obeyed, yet He still warns, still invites, still gives space to respond. Do not confuse God's warning with rejection. Rejection is silence. Warning is engagement. Warning is evidence that God still sees potential where you see fatigue. He still calls purpose where you feel numb. He still speaks destiny where you have settled for survival. This moment demands honesty, not the kind you show others, but the kind you allow God to hear. Honest confession is not weakness, it is alignment. God cannot heal what you refuse to expose. He cannot correct what you defend. He cannot lead what you insist on controlling. The approach of 11:59 p.m. is not about predicting an event. It is about revealing a condition where delay becomes disobedience, where neutrality becomes rebellion, where silence becomes agreement with what God has already condemned. This is a moment where clarity is unavoidable. God is not asking you to carry fear into the future. He is asking you to carry obedience into the present. Fear paralyzes, obedience mobilizes. When obedience begins, fear loses authority. This is why God confronts fear with truth, not reassurance. The warning also speaks to legacy. What you ignore today becomes the inheritance of tomorrow. Disobedience is never private, it always multiplies. Obedience too carries generational impact. God sees beyond your lifespan. He weighs the ripple effect of your decisions. You cannot claim ignorance. God has spoken through conscience, through conviction, through interruption, through clarity. Repeated warnings remove the excuse of unawareness. What remains is choice, and choice defines direction. God is not negotiating terms. He is issuing truth. Truth does not adapt to preference. It demands alignment. The longer you try to reshape truth to fit your comfort, the further you drift from peace. Peace follows truth. It does not precede it. This warning is also an invitation to return to reverence. Reverence is not fear of punishment. It is awareness of authority. When you truly recognize who God is, obedience becomes logical. Resistance becomes irrational. Delay becomes dangerous. You were never meant to live casually with eternity. Every moment is connected to something beyond time. God sees the full picture while you see fragments. Trusting Him requires surrendering your limited perspective. There is a cost to responding now. But there is a greater cost to ignoring this moment. Ignored warnings become future regrets. Obedience today prevents sorrow tomorrow. Go. D is trying to spare you, not scare you. This warning cuts through spiritual noise. It strips away trends, opinions, and distractions. It brings you face to face with one question that cannot be avoided. Will you obey God fully, or will you continue negotiating with time you do not control? God is not moved by panic, but He is honored by prompt obedience. When you respond quickly, it reveals trust. When you delay, it reveals attachment to control. This moment is revealing what truly governs your decisions. You are not too far gone, but you are not guaranteed unlimited opportunities either. Grace is available now. That is the emphasis, now. Not when circumstances improve, not when emotions settle, not when life slows down. Now is where obedience lives. God is not asking for a perfect response. He is asking for a real one. A response that turns away from delay and toward alignment. A response that abandons excuses and embraces truth. A response that treats this warning as what it is, mercy wrapped in urgency. The intensity you feel is intentional. God is narrowing your focus. He is removing distractions so that obedience becomes unmistakable. Confusion thrives in noise. Clarity thrives in stillness before God. This warning is not meant to be admired. It is meant to be acted upon. Admiration without obedience is still disobedience. God is not seeking agreement. He is seeking submission. As the moment continues to unfold, the weight does not lessen. It clarifies, it presse. It insists. God is not done speaking, but He is watching how you respond to what has already been spoken. Response determines relationship. Obedience determines direction. The final warning remains open because mercy still breathes. But mercy is not passive. It calls, it confronts. It demands response. God is near, not distant. He is present, not absent. He is speaking, not silent. And this moment continues to stretch forward, charged with meaning, saturated with urgency, calling you higher, calling you closer, calling you now, while time continues its movement, while the warning remains alive, unresolved, demanding alignment, pressing the soul, awakening conscience, and standing open before 11:59 p.m. is stripping away illusions in this hour. Illusions of permanence, illusions of control, illusions of spiritual safety without obedience. What once felt stable is beginning to tremble, not because God delights in shaking lives, but because He refuses to allow foundations built on convenience to stand forever. When God shakes what is temporary, it is because He wants what is eternal to remain. There is a sacred difference between being invited and being summoned. An invitation can be postponed. A summons demands response. This warning is not a suggestion, it is a summons. God is calling you to stand before truth without filters, without delays, without excuses. When God summons, He is not asking for your opinion. He is calling for your alignment. Many people have mistake and emotional comfort for divine approval. They assume that because they feel fine, everything is fine. But God does not measure spiritual health by comfort. He measures it by obedience. A calm conscience does not always mean a clean heart. Sometimes it means a silenced one. This warning is God restoring sensitivity where numbness has taken root. God is also addressing divided loyalty. A heart that tries to serve God while clinging to self-interest will always be unstable. Divided hearts cannot carry clear direction. God does not compete for space, He commands surrender. When He calls for the whole heart, it is because partial devotion eventually collapses. This moment exposes what you truly fear. Fear reveals authority. Whatever you fear most has the greatest influence over your decisions. God is calling you to transfer that authority back to Him. Reverence displaces fear. Trust dismantles anxiety. Obedience restores order where fear has ruled. The warning before 11:59 p.m. is also a call to spiritual maturity. God is not speaking to you as someone unaware, but as someone accountable. Accountability is evidence of value. God does not hold the unaware to the same standard as those who have been shown truth. With clarity comes responsibility. There is a refining happening now. Refining is not destruction, it is purification. God is burning away what cannot last so that what He placed within you can finally rise without obstruction. Refining feels intense because attachment resists release. But once released, freedom follows. God is reminding you that obedience is not loss, it is exchange. You exchange control for peace. You exchange pride for clarity. You exchange delay for direction. Nothing surrendered to God is ever truly lost. It is transformed into something greater, something eternal. This warning also corrects distorted patience. True patience waits on God. False patience waits on comfort. True patience remains obedient while waiting. False patience delays obedience until conditions improve. God honors those who act in faith, not those who postpone in fear. You may feel exposed, but exposure precedes covering. God uncovers to protect, not to shame. He reveals weakness so that strength can be rebuilt on truth, not illusion. Resistance to exposure prolongs pain. Surrender shortens the process. God is calling you to remember who He is, not who culture says He is. He is not optional. He is not adjustable. He is not silent on matters of truth. He is sovereign, intentional, and exact. When He warns, it is because the matter is settled on His side and response is now required on yours. This moment also confronts the misuse of grace. Grace is not permission to delay obedience. It is power to fulfill it. Grace does not excuse compromise. It empowers transformation. When grace is treated casually, conviction fades. God is restoring the weight of grace by restoring the seriousness of obedience. God sees, The private agreements you made with yourself. The internal promises to change later. The silent compromises no one else noticed. Heaven noticed, and still God warns not to condemn, but to invite you out of self-deception into truth. The warning is not meant to be processed intellectually alone. It must be answered volitionally. Truth acknowledged without action still leaves a person unchanged. God is not after agreement, He is after alignment. Alignment requires movement. There is a narrowing happening in this hour. Not everyone will walk the same path. Not everyone will respond. But those who do will find clarity replacing confusion, peace replacing anxiety, direction replacing drift. Narrowing is not exclusion, it is precision. God is not asking you to fix yourself before coming to Him. He's asking you to come as you are, but not remain as you were. Transformation begins at surrender, not perfection. Delay is often disguised as self-improvement. Obedience begins with trust, not readiness. The warning before 11:59 p.m. is a mercy that demands courage. Courage to confront habits. Courage to break patterns. Courage to obey when obedience isolates you from familiarity. God honors courage rooted in reverence. You were never meant to carry this moment lightly. Its weight is intentional. God is impressing urgency on your spirit because eternity is not theoretical. It is real and it is approaching. Living with that awareness sharpens priorities and purifies motives. God is still speaking because He still intends to act. What He does next will align with how you respond now. Response determines position. Position determines experience. Obedience determines outcome. This warning is not fading, it is intensifying, it is pressing closer, clearer, heavier, more unavoidable. God is not finished calling, but He is watching who will answer with action, who will step forward without negotiation, who will surrender without conditions, who will treat this moment as sacred and irreversible, who will respond while the door remains open and time still bends toward mercy, who will move while the warning remains alive, urgent, and uncompromising before 11:59 p.m. That God is reclaiming authority over moments people treated casually. There are sacred intersections in life where delay is no longer neutral. This is one of those intersections. When God speaks with urgency, it is because the weight of consequence has drawn near. Not because He desires loss, but because He desires alignment before loss becomes unavoidable. God never warns without providing a path back to order. There is a difference between being aware of God and being accountable to God. Awareness can remain passive. Accountability demands response. Many have remained aware for years, yet untouched by transformation. This warning shifts you from awareness into accountability. What you do next matters more than what you have known until now. God is dismantling the belief that obedience is restrictive. Obedience is not confinement, it is clarity. Thank you. It removes confusion, hesitation, and divided direction. When obedience is delayed, the soul fragments. When obedience is embraced, the soul aligns. God is not limiting you, He is stabilizing you. This moment also exposes misplaced identity. Some have built identity on productivity, influence, knowledge, or reputation. But when those structures shake, identity collapses with them. God is calling you back to identity rooted in surrender, not performance. What you do flows from who you are aligned to. Misalignment at the identity level always produces instability in action. God is not surprised by resistance, but He does not accommodate it. Resistance hardens the heart. Responsiveness softens it. Every warning is an invitation to choose softness over stubbornness. A soft heart hears clearly. A hard heart hears selectively. The warning before 11:59 p.m. is not an emotional appeal. It is a spiritual directive. God governs by truth, not impulse. He is not trying to move your feelings. He is commanding your will. Feelings follow decisions. Peace follows obedience. God knows this order, which is why he speaks directly to choice. You must understand that silence does not mean safety. Often, silence is the space given for decision. God pauses not because he is unsure, but because he is allowing you to act without coercion. But pauses do not last forever. When silence ends, movement follows, either in mercy or consequence. God is calling you to stop negotiating with obedience. Nay, negotiation implies equal authority. There is no equal authority with God. His instruction is not a topic for debate, it is a command for alignment. Negotiation delays clarity. Submission releases it. This warning also reveals how easily people confuse intention with obedience. Intending to change is not changing. Planning to obey is not obedience. God honors action, not aspiration. Aspirations without movement become self-deception over time. God is asking you to confront the cost of disobedience honestly. It has already cost you peace. It has already weakened clarity. It has already delayed purpose. Yet obedience, though it feels costly at first, restores what disobedience erodes. God always restores with interest. This moment is not about proving worth. It is about recognizing authority. You do not obey to earn value. You obey because God is sovereign. Obedience flows from reverence, not insecurity. God is not testing you to see if you are enough. He is inviting you to trust that He is. The warning before 11:59 p.m. also confronts the misuse of time. Time is not neutral ground. It is either used in alignment or wasted in resistance. God redeems time when you surrender direction. He does not add hours. He multiplies impact. God is reminding you that delayed obedience is still disobedience, even when intentions appear sincere. Sincerity does not replace submission. Good motives do not cancel delayed action. Truth requires response, not explanation. There is a holy seriousness in this moment because God is recalibrating direction. Recalibration requires stillness, attention, and humility. Pride resists recalibration. Humility welcomes it. God is not changing truth. He is correcting alignment. This warning is also a mercy to interrupt self-deception. Self-deception is dangerous because it feels safe. It allows people to remain unchanged while believing they are fine. God disrupts that false peace because He values your soul more than your comfort. God is calling you to release what you have been protecting at the expense of obedience. What you protect controls you. What you surrender frees you. Control is a heavy burden the soul was never designed to carry. You may feel the narrowing intensify, fewer options, clearer choices. This is not limitation, it is guidance. God narrows to protect. He clarifies to preserve. Confusion is not a sign of complexity. It is often a sign of resistance. God is not asking for emotional agreement. He is asking for directional change. Direction reveals allegiance. Where you move reveals who you trust. Stillness in the face of instruction is a decision to remain unchanged. This warning also exposes the danger of familiarity. Familiarity with God's language can dull reverence for God's authority. God is restoring awe because awe restores obedience. When awe fades, compromise increases. God does not warn because He is unsure of the outcome. He warns because He is giving you the opportunity to choose a different one. Choice is a gift, but it carries responsibility. Ignored choice becomes consequence. The weight you feel is not heaviness without purpose. It is gravity pulling you back into alignment with truth. God is grounding you because drifting further would cause greater damage. This moment is alive. It is active. It is not symbolic. God is speaking now, watching now, waiting now. Every delay sharpens the contrast between obedience and resistance. Every moment clarifies intention. The warning remains because mercy remains. But mercy is not passive. It presses, it calls, it demands attention. God is not finished speaking, and this moment continues unfolding, stretching, pressing deeper into conscience and will, calling for surrender without delay, alignment without negotiation, obedience without conditions while time continues forward and the weight of decision remains suspended, urgent, alive, and uncompromising before 11:59 p.m. This is the moment to stand still inside yourself and let truth speak louder than habit. Not to analyze your life through comparison, but to weigh it honestly before God. Let the noise fall silent. Let the excuses loosen their grip. Let the defenses come down. God is not asking you to relive your past. He is asking you to realign your present. What you choose now has the power to redirect everything that follows. Do not underestimate the sacred power of a single, sincere turning of the heart. God responds to truth spoken inwardly, to surrender that is not performed but meant. You do not need to fix everything at once. You need to place everything in His hands. The moment you stop running, clarity begins. The moment you release control, peace finds its way back to you. This is your invitation to return to reverence, to rebuild your inner life on obedience rather than impulse, on trust rather than fear. Let God reorder your priorities, sharpen your discernment, and steady your steps. Let your life become a response instead of a reaction. Let your choices reflect awareness that every moment matters. Walk forward with humility and courage. Courage to obey when it costs. Humility to listen when correction comes. Strength to walk away from what weakens your spirit. God is near to those who turn sincerely, and He honors those who respond without delay. Let this moment mark a shift, not a memory, but a movement, not an emotion, but a decision. Let your life speak alignment. Let your actions carry reverence. Let your days be shaped by obedience and your nights by peace. God is calling you closer, not later. Calling you deeper, not halfway. Calling you now while the door remains open, while mercy still reaches, while purpose still waits, while your heart can still respond, while this sacred moment still stands alive before 11:59 p.m.